Now let's first go and have a look what our Solace setup looks like. So in the Solace event portal, I have a few different event API products, event APIs, and of course events as well that are connected to those. Now I'm just going to focus here on the Gravitee Solace stock API event API product. So this one contains a gold plan with some subscription details for this particular access on the broker, as well as a stock API event API, which is included here. So let's go and have a look into Gravitee to see how we can get this particular event API managed in the Gravitee environment. So just as we did with Amazon, I'll come in here and I can create a new integration. I can select Solace and give it a name and a description. Once I've done that, I will be able to deploy a Docker container, link the integration ID to this one right here, and then also provide things like the Solace event portal token and other details that the agent needs to sync between Solace control plane and Gravitee control plane. So I've already have that up and running. So what I'll do now is I'll go and click the Discover button here to enable Gravitee to fetch event APIs from within Solace to Gravitee. So we have a few different event APIs here. I'm going to be focusing on the stock API, which is 0.14 version. We can see Gravitee imported not only the name and version description here, but also the plan, which is the gold plan. So we prefix the gold plan here with the name of the event API product, which indeed was Gravitee Solace stock API. So we can see this is an OAuth plan. So that is what we'll be using in this demonstration. Now, the next thing I can do is also look at the documentation. So we actually imported the async API documentation as well from Solace. So we can have that in the developer portal as well. We can, of course, if you want to also provide other documentation and changed pictures and backgrounds and categories and labels and other capabilities of Gravitee. Now what I'll do is I'll publish this API to the developer portal. So coming into the developer portal, the first thing I actually want to do here is to create a new application. I want to show you the end-to-end access and subscription experience with Gravitee, API management, access management, and Solace. So the Solace Event Broker has been configured to validate access tokens, JOT tokens, for the Gravitee API, access management gateway. So go ahead and create an application here. So I'll call this Edge app. I'll give it just a simple temp description. The next thing I'll say that this is a web application that I may want to be using in my browser, and I'll put a callback URL here. In the end, I'm going to be using Postman to get the token and connect to the Solace Event Broker. So I'll be using the Postman UI here as the callback URL. Okay, so I'll just go and create this application as is. Now, thanks to dynamic client registration, we can go to our access management console here, and what we'll find is this new application also being created here. So here I can control more settings of the authentication experience. So we have the same redirect URL right here. I can control how people are allowed to sign in. I can enable or disable passwordless authentication. I can enable or disable multi-factor authentication. I can customize what the different flows and experiences should look like across my entire application. I can go and maybe if I want to, for example, change the theme here to maybe something like orange, something like that, I can go ahead and change that for my environment. But for now, there's nothing else that I'm going to be doing here as part of customizing this user experience for end users signing in. In the portal, it's important that I just note down my client ID and client secret, as I will be using them when I actually get a token later on. So next, I'm going to go to the catalog and discover all the APIs that exist here. Now, what I expect is that there's going to be a stock API waiting for me. So again, I can see the documentation here, the async API documentation generated by Solace, and I'm going to be using an MQTT, secure MQTT connection when I connect to this. But I can see, the payload structure and the schema here for the different events on operations on this API. So I'll go through and subscribe to this. So I'll select the only plan here, which is this gold plan that we imported from Solace. I'll select my application that I just created, the Edge application. And that's pretty much it. So now I've created that request, and it's up to the API provider inside the Gravitee console to go and validate my application. So we can see the subscription request here coming in, and I'm going to select that yes, I'll approve of this subscription. So now what is happening is that Gravitee is working through the agent to the control plane of Solace to create the right subscription and access groups on the Solace Event Broker side to allow this client ID to consume or produce from the event broker for this particular event API. So before we go and show exactly how this works from a client perspective, we can just have a look to see what happened on the Solace side. So we have an OAuth profile that points to the Gravitee access management capability to validate the different tokens. And we have an authorization group here for our client ID used to connect as well. So the next thing I'll be doing is I'll be switching here to the Postman client. I'll be first requesting a new token. So I'll just make a temporary request here. I'm going to be using the built-in capabilities from Postman to generate an authorization, a JOT token here. So I put in my client ID and I'll put in my client secret here that we got when we created this Edge application. So what I'll do now is I'll retrieve an access token by authenticating to the Gravitee access management application. So we can see here, by the way, the different colors that we edited before. We can customize this. We can connect with different identity providers. We can enable passwordless authentication, multi-factor authentication. But in this case, I'm just simply going to sign in here with a user that I know has access to this application. Okay, I'm going to skip registering my biometric authentication device here. And now going back to Postman, I will now have this access token. So I'll go ahead and copy this access token because I'm going to be needing it when connecting to the Solace event broker. So what I can do is I can simply create a new request here. So I'm going to be using a MQTT request. I'm going to be putting in an authorization. So I'm going to be using a basic authentication here. And I'm going to be using the token here. There's some Solace specific details that you need as well that I'm going to be filling in. And that is a prefix here of the OAuth authentication type and the OAuth profile that we have configured in Solace. And for the username here, I can use any username as is ignored in this particular case. The next thing, of course, I need is the URL of the Solace event broker. So I can go to the developer portal here. So let's come back to the Solace API product here. So I'll navigate to the stock API, and here I can see the documentation. So I'll steal this part of the connection here. So I'll put MQTTS as the protocol. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to configure a particular topic that I want to be listening to. I'll put in the topic name here based on one of these operations. So I want new prices to be consumed by me. So I'll copy in new prices and I'm going to say that I'm going to want to subscribe to that. And there we go. We actually managed now to subscribe to this particular event API on the Solace event broker with the authentication and JOT token provided by Gravitee Access Management, thanks to that subscription flow that we did with the developer portal. So as the last thing I want to show is I want to go back to Solace here, and I want to use the try function. I'm going to be connecting here to the Solace event broker. I'm going to specify the same topic and just do a hello world here as the new price for the new option. So I'll publish that, and what we can see here is that message coming through on the console right here. So that was an end-to-end demo just to show how you can import and manage Solace event APIs inside the Gravitee, expose that in the developer portal for easy discovery and subscription management, as well as using Gravitee to generate the authentication experience and OAuth token that is then validated by the Gravitee system when incoming requests to the Solace event broker coming in.